Ray Cooper III and David Michaud have already said that they want a shot at you.
Once people stop being interested in fighting you, that means something's wrong.
I don't know how it's been for you, Rory. I feel like I had an advantage as I transitioned from wrestling for the national team and wrestling at a high level. We had access to a sports psychologist. So I felt like I developed some terminology and what I call mental skills to deal with the adversity of competition. What's your take on that? You started training in this sport at 14 years old.
It's one of those things that I never really addressed early on in my career. It was always just about the physical thing, but I think they kind of go hand in hand with the physical training. When you're passionate about something and when you hunger after a goal, I always found that when I pushed myself in the training room, I felt like it also hardened my mind. I felt the difference in fights where I was hungry, motivated, compared to fights where I was half in, half out. I felt the mental part of it when I was inside the cage play a big factor because I wasn't battle ready.
How do you deal with that fear of failing? You've been in some of the biggest fights there are. There's an innate fear. I think anybody that says they're not a little bit scared in those situations is probably a sociopath or they're lying.
Where I rose to the occasion was overcoming fear, almost like switching into an alpha mentality. Mm-hmm. Fear is obviously there, the adrenaline is there, the pressure is all there. But, if I dwell in my mind about all the what ifs, I get all mixed up. Too many butterflies, too many ups and downs. But if I could switch into kind of like beast mode or like with an alpha mentality that I'm going out there to hunt my opponent down and take what's mine, that's always helped me.
And what about the psychological warfare? I see you as you've grown as a fighter, you've also implemented some of that, talking a little bit, poking your opponent a little bit verbally. Is that intentional? Is that to distract him? What's your thought on that, kind of that psychological piece?
Yeah, it's definitely a factor for some people. I've tried it against a few guys and it's worked. There's also some guys that it doesn't work against, that are just like rock solid. They're there to battle, they're warriors and they could care less about that stuff. But there are some guys that you can get in their head a little bit. So it's definitely a weapon to use. It's not something I'm super focused on, but if the opportunity's there, I'll do it.
Each guy you face, is a specific set of problems, physically, tactically, technically, and mentally. And you have to kind of come up with the right game plan and execute that game plan. And sometimes you have to adjust it. Sometimes you completely get it wrong. What's your take on that? How do you see that, that fight IQ, the psychological and physical piece of that?
I always try to not get too overwhelmed with the game plan before the fight. I don't watch a whole lot of footage. I'll watch here and there. Sometimes I don't at all. I personally like to adjust to the guy when I'm in front of them. Okay. I feel really comfortable with all aspects of MMA, from striking, wrestling, and on the grappling scenario on the ground. I feel like having, skills in all areas, I feel like I can adjust on the fly just with like my muscle memory, what I've trained. If I see an opening, I'll go for it. But I don't like to have my mind locked on one thing before the fight happens.
How do you do with a dangerous fighter? Certainly everybody has a puncher's chance in there, but some guys are more dangerous than others. You fought Lawler. Lawler's knocked a lot of guys out. That was a knockdown, drag-out fight. What was your mental approach, and how'd you feel about going into a fight with a guy like that where this guy's dangerous? He could hurt me.
I fought him twice, actually. The first time, I don't think I took him serious enough. I think at that point in my career, I would think I was a little bit full of myself. So when we rematched for the title. And I knew that it was going to be a a fight. You know, when
Mhm.
you go against Robbie, it's always a fight. Whenever you got a dangerous guy, you can't let that, like you said, your crazy roommate tell you he's gonna go in there and knock you out. You almost have to combat it and just, like you said, just kind of overcome it in your mind.
For me, facing Chuck Liddell the first time, coming off of 2 losses, I think they were hoping, frankly, that I would lose that fight and then he'd be back in the driver's seat and they'd have somebody that they wanted to get behind. We're excited that you're with the PFL. You're probably in the strongest weight class in this league and with this format. How do you see that going? Those guys are looking at you like you have a target on your back. Everybody wants a shot at you. How does that make you feel? And what are you anticipating getting into this first season with the PFL?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I have the target on my back, and I thrive on that. When I first started my career and people would call me out, as my name was getting a little bit of notoriety, I always kind of got almost a little bit emotional about it, because I wasn't used to it. But now I realize if guys are calling you out, it means that you're doing something right. Once people stop being interested in fighting you, that means something's wrong. I'm happy that, all the guys in my division are gunning for me. I'm looking forward to going out there and just waking them up to realize that I'm not here to play games. I'm not here for any notoriety. I'm here to take over. I don't want to just wake up my division and the guys I'm fighting, but I want everybody around the world, and everybody who's watching MMA, to realize that the beast inside me is awoken. I'm hungry, I'm motivated, and I want everybody to realize that I am the best welterweight in the world, regardless of promotions and things like that. So I want my performances to be an example of that. I'm in my training now, hungry as ever, motivated to go out there and make a statement against the best guys in the division.
Favorite fight of my career is the Tim Sylvia fight. Coming off a 13-month layoff at 44 years old to fight for the heavyweight title against a guy that size and that crowd in Ohio that night is definitely one of my favorite fights.
My favorite fight of my career was when I fought Paul Daly in London. It was a lot of pressure on that fight. I was coming off a couple of losses, leaving the UFC, and there was a lot of pressure on me to perform at my best, and I was able to go out there and get it done.
Toughest fight of my career was the first time I fought Pedro Hizzo. It was a title fight, knockdown, drag out. I won the first, he won the second, I won the third and the fourth, he won the fifth. I mean, it was just back and forth. Broke my nose, got kicked in the leg about 14 times. My leg swelled up and turned black. It was I didn't walk right for about 3 weeks after that fight. I was fortunate to win a unanimous decision, but it was a tough fight.
The toughest fight of my career was probably my second fight against Robbie Lawler, or my first fight with Douglas Lima. Both of them, I had to push through a lot to get through those fights. I had a lot of injuries that they gave me from Lima kicking my leg and Robbie breaking my nose.
The thing I like most about training is the schedule, the regularity of it. Life gets so crazy that when you're in training camp, there's a simplicity to that. Eat, sleep, train. It's very directed. And in a lot of ways, that simplifies life, if that makes sense. But that's the thing I like about it most, and the thing I miss.
My favorite part of training is when you're pushing, when you're training hard for a fight, and you hit that next gear when you thought your body was shutting down, and you get that second wind. You come alive inside. I don't know, that feeling of pushing down barriers to get yourself stronger and better. It feels awesome.